For me, it's not a game when people, write their comments about their money being taken out of their bank account, wages being garnished, barely able to make ends meet, and they were already struggling financially, and now they're going to be struggling more. This is something that a lot of Americans are facing, and there are options that are available, but people are either afraid or they just don't know that you can protect yourself from debt collectors and original creditors just being able to just, take your money, take your assets. There are options available, but you have to know where you fit in. Just like with anything, your situation may be different and than someone else's. So what I'm going to do is I want to answer some questions that I've had over a period of time, and then there was one gentleman who asked this question about protecting his money, and he must be facing a garnishment or judgment, and he was wondering like what are the ways to be able to protect his money, and so if you're at the beginning phases of a potential court action against you by the original creditor or debt collector, you really need to watch this video because this is going to give you some information about how you can protect your money, protect your assets. So first, let's talk about if you're an individual and you're like going through the court process, like they're suing you, or maybe you already have the judgment and you're just wondering like, can they come and take my money? Well, they can come and take your money if they get a writ of execution to garnish your bank account. No matter what state you live in, a debt collector can choose to go that route. Most of the time, in most states, they are still garnishing wages. They do that because they know that they're able to get all of the money if they garnish wages. But I'm starting to see an uptick where they are just garnishing the bank account, where they'll just take all of the money as much as they can, and the individuals left trying to scramble and pay their bills and pay their debt. So let's first talk about that one right there. If your money has been taken out of your account, you are protected to where, and it's different state to state, so you need to look at your state laws. But almost every state, or I believe every state, requires that they leave a certain amount of money in there. And some states require that they can, if you don't have a certain amount of money in your account, that they're not allowed to take any of the money. So you have to look at the laws in your state. Um, and when it comes to being able to take your property, take your assets, which could be, some people are worried about their vehicle being taken, maybe something they have an investment property or something like that. In most states, and you still got to check your state laws, they have what's called a 6 month rule. And that means that if you get a judgment today, they can go back 6 months and look at anything that you've transferred. So if you transferred property to someone, house, money, all of that type of stuff, they would go be able to go and claw back that property, that asset, if they found out about it, but also if it was, I only see this if it's a big money, what they consider a big money judgment. They're not going to go and do this over a smaller credit card debt, something like 3 to 4 to 5 thousand dollars. I don't see that happening. What I do see happening with the $3 to 4 thousand dollar credit card debts is that they're just, choosing to garnish the wages or to garnish the bank account. So to protect yourself, if you know that you have some stuff coming down the line, maybe you have a business and you were running into trouble and not able to pay those debts, you might want to start to take protective measures uh, right away, and don't have to try to see if you can do that in the future because it's going to either be too late, or if you lose, they're going to be able to, force a sale on that asset. As a matter of fact, something like that similarly happened to me years ago from a business deal, where the business didn't even do anything, but because of something that I was left with owing, and it was a high enough amount of what's considered a big money judgment, and it was actually done from another state where I wasn't even aware of it, and it was done in a foreign, what they consider a foreign judgment, not foreign from another country, but foreign from one state to another. And those are some of the hardest types of cases to get turned around because number one, you have to go to the other state, and then number two, this when your state gets it from another state, they're going to just honor that because they want the same reciprocation when they send it to another state. If someone was to get a judgment in your current state and they sent it to another state. So you got to be very careful, especially if you're a business owner. And the one thing that for business owners you got to be careful about with your accounts, regardless if you have partners or it's they will be able to they will be able to take the money directly out of your bank account. I had a client where this happened to him, where he had a food service company that he owed money to. There was some sort of dispute. They ended up getting a judgment. He didn't think that they were going to be able to do anything about it, and all of a sudden they came in and they took $15,000 from multiple withdrawals on his account. He didn't even know what he was able to do about it, and so you have to take protective action. So I know that those might be at the with the business might be at something that you may not be facing, but I'm pretty sure most of the people that are watching this video that you are probably facing issues where you might have potential judgments coming your way from debt collectors. So you need to, number one, prepare yourself if you do have assets and in your bank account, you need to make some protective measures on your bank account. Now, this is not legal advice. I'm just telling you about that. So there is a 6-month rule. You might want to check your state laws to see what's the rule in your state. And then now let's just say that you're past the 6-month rule and you're trying to look for ways to kind of get yourself get some your feet under you so you can kind of reset, refocus, and be able to save your assets, be able to save as much money as possible. You should open up communications with that creditor or that debt collector or the plaintiff who is representing the original creditor and see what could be done on potential settlement. Let them know your hardship and delay that process. Now, shifting property, I would not do that. If it's a big money type situation, because they probably already have investigators that know your situation. I'm even seeing that they're getting investigators to look at people who have higher paying jobs so they can kind of see where you're at, where you live at, car you drive, all of that stuff. Like they're actually putting money into doing that because if these are big money, 30, 40, 50, 60, $70,000 potential cases, they're going to put that type of money into finding out your assets and how much money you potentially have. So I would say that if I were you, I would open up communications, kind of delay the process, get your feet under you, make your moves that you need to make to protect your assets, protect your money. And when I say protecting assets, that's not meaning that you're moving assets. That means that you just know what you have. If it's a property, does it have equity? If it was sold, would it be able to pay that debt? Because if it's not your personal property, they could try to force that sale of that property. So what I'm saying is you need to take evaluation of everything that you got so you can make a good financial decision on what you're going to need to do to negotiate to get yourself out of that debt situation. Now, before we move on to the exemptions that are for mainly lower income or for retirees, each state has, well, not each state, my state of Wisconsin, some other states have something similar, is where they will take into account how many dependents you have. And if you don't earn over a certain amount of money, you do not qualify to be garnished. So they call it a poverty guideline, but the guideline is mainly based on lower income individuals or individuals who earn moderate income, but they have a certain amount of dependents. They will not allow that individual to be garnished in our state. and your state may have something similar. They call it poverty guideline in our state. So you might want to search for something similar. If you're not able to do a lump sum, the next step is going to be uh, where you're going to usually be able to be garnished up to 25% of your wages, which is probably the norm across state to state, and that could make it very tough on people because they don't take into consideration your other debts that you're paying. In most cases, you may be able to. What I would advise a person to do to be able to save their money, save as much as possible, to be able to get a foundation under them and be able to reset is if you open up the communications, just say, hey, I can't afford to pay the 25%, can we move forward with this amount? So you can, because if they're going to get the garnishment anyway, you might as well try to negotiate something more favorable so you can just make it easier on yourself until you're able to reset and maybe offer them a lump sum, maybe when you get your taxes or you got some money that's coming down the line or you can save a little bit of money. The next thing, um, with the payments, even if you have the garnishment coming out already, you can call them to renegotiate that. We've done that for several clients before where they came to us, they said, hey, I just can't make it, month to month paying this either biweekly or monthly garnishment. And we would say, well, contact them and we can renegotiate on the amount. They're usually willing to do that because they want to still be able to make the money. And most of the time, if it's a debt collection company, they're going to do it, or they'll get with their client and they'll usually make that adjustment because their goal is to continue having the money come in. And if you're not able to afford it, uh, they will uh, they will make that adjustment. And also, I've seen this even with employees for one of my businesses is when we get garnishments even from the state where they either owed for unemployment that they had an overpayment on or for whatever reason from some type of debt with the state is that you can call them up and they will make adjustments. There was one that was recently made for one of my employees where they're only paying 5%. So rather than 25%, they're only paying 5%. And believe it or not, something that I've noticed when we key in these garnishments for our employees is that the balance goes down over time. It's like one of them things where you just get, when you're used to doing it and you see that I'm like, a group of employees, they finished paying their garnishment and they, so now they're kind of off to a fresh start. So, you know, probably one of the biggest hurdles for people to go through is to just get to in that routine of making those payments. But I do understand that it does disrupt the household and you got to kind of get into a routine of how to, now budget your money with that garnishment. So now let's talk about some of the uh, exemptions that are available if you're on public assistance. And we kind of just talked about that in a way, low income, but public assistance, you would not be able to be garnished. If you're getting supplemental Social Security income, does not qualify for garnishment. Social Security income and Social Security disability income, veterans benefits. We've had people on Social Security, we've had veterans come to us and they were not aware that they cannot be garnished. Child support money cannot be garnished. Spousal support money cannot be garnished. Workers' compensation money cannot be garnished. Unemployment insurance money cannot be garnished, but your money can be garnished if you were overpaid unemployment insurance. Railroad retirement benefits cannot be garnished, and black lung benefits cannot be garnished. Uh, these types of retirement funds are also exempt from garnishment. So if you have public and private pensions, if you have a retirement savings account like a 401k or individual retirement account, and all of the principal and 90% of payments from a private trust. Now, this is something that you see a lot of videos on where people make videos and they talk about money from, put your money into a trust and nothing's going to be able to happen to you. I could tell you that any type of court action where you are at fault for something, where they say, this is something that you did, you can be held liable and you can open up the door for money to be taken, even if you have it in trust. Now, I admit that they won't be able to run over you. There are certain things that they would have to do to be able to get access to it, but it is possible. So be very careful about setting up a trust, and also be very careful about setting up a trust just to run away from responsibility on debt. Because if you open up anything, even if you open up a corporation just to run away from debt, you could be opening up the door, because you can't do this stuff to do something fraudulent. You can't do it to try to just run away from stuff. So you have to be very careful with that. And this is when they mention it here, this is not from someone doing something to try to run away from their responsibility. This is just saying that all of the principal and 90% of the payment from the trust would not be able to be touched. So if you so say let's just say, for instance, you're making 10,000 a month from your trust, they would be able to take $1,000 of that money to pay down your debt. So it is something that would be able to be touched. So you need to be aware of that. Now, personal property, I've had some people that said, can they take my vehicles? What are the types of stuff they could take? On the list here, the types of property that cannot be seized by the U.S. Marshals: household goods like furniture, clothes. So some people get afraid of that. They're thinking that they're going to come and take that. I think that's from debt collectors who are harassing people who say stuff like that. And then medical equipment, they can't take. It says here one television, one radio, one computer, and one cell phone would be exempt. Personal items like jewelry and art not exceeding $1,000 in value would be exempt. Items that are needed for work, like tools of the trade, not to exceed $3,000. I remember a client in the past. He was a plumber, and I remember he was going through some stuff, and he was like, "Man, if I lose my tools, I'm not going to be able to work." And I remember that conversation. I was like, "Man, we got to work out something so you don't end up losing your ability to make money with your income." And he was a contracted plumber, so that means that he had to always be required to have his own tools. And then $1,000 in personal property like cash, uh, and if you're not claiming a homestead exemption. So you got to kind of look at the laws in your state on that. Uh, it says here that a marshal with a vehicle, if it's greater than $4,000, that it could potentially be able to be used to pay the debt. Uh, so you need to be aware of that. Also, now if that's only if the vehicle is paid off. If the vehicle is not paid off, they cannot take that asset from another creditor and take that property and try to sell it. Also, if you have personal property, you gotta be careful, and this goes back to what we talked about earlier with money that you might have in the bank. You know, certain types of real estate investments, other investments that you might have interest in. I mainly only usually see these when it comes to business people, business owners. But you do have to be careful. Now, another protective measure with all of this, even with everything that I've just went through and said, is that you always have the door open for if any violations were made by the plaintiff or the plaintiff slash debt collection company. So you need to always, that these are things that, because people are under so much stress from dealing with someone potentially trying to take their money, trying to take their property, that they don't even pay attention to the way that they could be that the plaintiff, and that could be even an original creditor or a debt collector, could be violating the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. Let me give you one example. One of the major credit card company providers would utilize a debt collection service that would actually have people from a certain religion call people that they suspected to be of a certain religion. And they would say things to those individuals that they know would push a button about them being responsible for paying their debts, because in their religion, uh, I won't say, I think every religion talks about paying your debt, but in their religion, it seems, at least to people that I've came across, that it is something that kind of, goes to their core. Maybe because in their country they didn't have the options that we have available here in the United States. Obviously, when they get here to the United States, they get into the same trouble that all of us get into. So I think that it's mainly something that where the remedy that is available here for us is not available in their native country. So it's kind of more internalized when they go through it here, even though they have the options. This is something that is being used against them, and that would be a violation. That would be a violation that would be able to get the debt, I believe, forgiven if that original creditor was put on notice about the way that company that they hired was coming at people of that faith. Uh, for this client, he did not choose to go that route. He chose to do settlement, but I did make it clear to him when he expressed it to me that that they are using your religion against you. So you could look for violations, find those violations, and if you see them, then that's something that could be an option that you can utilize to stop that whole judgment and collection process. So it's always good to just know all of your options. And then my thinking. My thinking is that if you're always thinking positive, that some good things can happen. People call them miracles. I call it preparation, where you just look at what's going on, look at your situation, be realistic about what you're going through. You don't have to be realistic about the solution, because any type of solution could come to you where you might think it's a miracle. A debt collector or one of the companies that's doing the work for an original creditor might make a mistake in the words that they say that you might be able to utilize against them. You just never know. But I know that if you put this stuff on paper, if you look at your entire situation and you take the emotions out of it, which I know is very difficult. I've been in this same situation that I'm speaking about right now. But you got to take the emotion out so you can think clearly, so you can be creative. And also, if you end up paying a debt, regardless of the amount, you're going to be able to move forward. You're going to make all of that money back. You're going to not have to worry about that, them calling, worry about when you end up getting that new job or that big promotion or that big uh, windfall from your business, that you don't have to worry about someone spying on you and coming and figuring out a way to come and take your money. So it's always good to just be thinking about moving forward. All right, if you need help with your credit, please visit us at thecreditrepairshop.com. Watch the video, What Makes Us Different, so you can see my 8-point validation process, my two-phase settlement process. If you need your credit reports and scores, go to the website your3scores.com to grab your TransUnion, Equifax, Experian credit reports and all 3 scores. If you have debt collectors coming after you, before it gets to this point, grab my 3-pack of letters, statute of limitations, debt validation, and cease and desist collection activities letter. That link is working. Someone said that the link wasn't working. It is working. You just got to scroll down a little bit more. And if you have debt collectors that are suing you in court, we have a service to help with your response. Even if you have a motion for summary judgment, which a lot of the debt collection lawsuits right now, what they're doing is when people write the response or they don't write a response, that they're trying to motion for a summary judgment, hoping that an individual either gets mixed up with what that means or they don't know how to respond to that. You have to respond to that a certain way because what they're actually doing is not, they're trying to not give you the opportunity to defend yourself. So we do have a service for that, but you would have to contact my office, go to my website, and then we would need to speak to you first before we would let you know how much we would charge for your particular situation to help you out with that. Thank you for your time. Please subscribe to the channel. Post your questions and comments. This is Stephen A. Williams, President and Founder of the CreditRepairShop.com.